So here we go. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and talk about what we mean by a brand. All right, so what in the world is a brand? Well, when people think of brands, they often think of logos, right? Very common logos. Well, the reality is that as lovely as these logos are, this is not the brand of these three companies, these very, very solid companies. The brand, and if we were in person, I do a lot of call outs. I just don't have time for that. I'm just going to cut to the chase and say that the brand is the value that these companies provide their unique customers. And I'm sure you would agree when you look at these three companies, while sure, there could be overlapping customers. I mean, I might use Apple, Tom's of Maine, and Nordstrom, and I have in the past. These three companies have very unique demographics, very unique segments, certain kinds of consumers in this case that they're looking to target, and they're trying to sell themselves in a certain way. Axe Body Wash, for example, I don't know if this is very random, right? They've been doing a whole series of commercials, and you can tell beyond a shadow of a doubt, they are targeting the 18 to 21-year-old male. Okay, and their entire, like, it would not appeal to me, but man, oh man, is it probably appealing to the 18 to 21-year-old male. Okay, they are trying to provide a value to that person. So what is a personal brand? Okay, now, so in this case, I'm just going to read this to you because I just think it's a really interesting quote. Personal branding is a way of clarifying and communicating what makes you different and special, using those qualities to guide your career or business decisions. It's about understanding your unique attributes, your strengths, your values, your passions, and using them to separate yourself from your competitors or your peers. In this sense, personal branding means that it means clearly communicating the unique promise of value. I should underscore that, the unique promise of value that you have to offer your employer or your clients. So how do you do this? Well, first of all, you have to know your brand. And I break down your brand into three different areas: your superpowers, your community, and your lane. What in the world do I mean by that? Okay. So your superpowers, I believe everybody's got superpowers. We all do. It's what makes us special. It's the function, in this case, it's the functional skills that makes you unique. Now, you would look at a call like this, and you've got a whole bunch of project managers on this call. Well, Teresa is going to could actually interview any one of you. In fact, I already know she's interviewed several of you because of the intros before. But she could interview every single one of you. And even though on paper, you all might have very similar skill sets or overlapping skill sets, trust me when I say that Teresa knows the distinction between certain kinds of superpowers, right? Somebody who is better at cost management or at scheduling or at risk management or agile or whatever the case may be. She can kind of finally suss that out. Teresa, I hope you don't mind that I keep talking about you here, but I think you're a really good anchor point.
I love it.
You're a really good anchor point of this conversation because you are a recruiter. You're exactly the kind of person who these folks are going to be looking at. Of course, not just you as a third party recruiter, you work with Robert Half, but also employers, right? Same kind of thing. And so there's the superpowers, knowing the functional skills that you excel at, and watch this, not only do you excel, but you love to do the work. You could be great at something and not particularly enjoy it. And if you take a job that's at least 50% of those skills that you're great at and you don't love, what happens? You become a disengaged employee. Not good for you, not good for them. Okay. So unlike that expression, oh, people need to work to their strengths. I don't believe that. People need to work to their areas of what I call high engagement. That's an HR term. High engagement is where a person, an employee, is not only good at a job, but they give discretionary effort above and beyond their work because they want to, not because they have to. Because just because you're capable doesn't mean you want to do the work. Okay. So I'm going to be taking you through an exercise in a minute that'll help you to suss that out. Okay. So the first is your superpowers. The second is what I call your community. Right. To tell you the truth, I used to call this a tribe because there's actually Seth Godin talks about tribe, but I'm sensitive to my Native American colleagues. And so I now call it community. Okay. This is a broader term. And your community is the industry, mission, or sector that you may align with. Right. Now, here's what I mean by may. So I noticed in the intros here, before we started this call, a few of you were saying, oh yeah, I've worked in CPG or I've worked for utility. Now, those of you who said that, it struck me, I think that you were sort of what I call cross community. You could work here, you could work there. And probably, I suspect, for a lot of PMs, that's the case, right? You're not necessarily wedded to a particular industry. You might be. And if you are, that is something that you need to showcase in your resume and particularly in your LinkedIn profile. Let's say it's CPG, or let's say it's high tech, or whatever it is, okay? And why do I mention that? Because employers love it when you connect with their industry. They love it when you can say, I get the unique industry challenges that keep you up at night. And so just as an example, John didn't mention the name of the individual who referred me to him, but interestingly, I recruit, so Teresa recruits from the PM sector, right? I recruit for associations. Okay. Now here in the DC area, we've got an association on every street corner, and I guess there's an association for everything. Okay. National Association of Widget Makers, but there probably would be if they're right, such a thing. Right. It's true. If there was, there would be. And so I say that because the colleague who referred me to John is an association colleague who happens to know John, because why John is volunteering for what? Y'all are an association. Okay. So we connected at that level. And yet here you are guys in the PM. So for me, the industry that I brand myself in, the sector rather, is the association world. For some of you, you might have a sector. If you do, show it. If you don't worry about it. But every one of you has a lane, okay? It's your profession or your occupation. In this case, it's some version of project management, okay? You're a Scrum, you're Agile, whatever, but you've got your professional lane. Those three areas to me are sort of the pillars, the three legs to your branding stool. So there's this concept called the 3 C's of personal branding. I'm going to run through them super fast. First of all, in terms of personal branding, you need to be clear. Clear. No mud allowed. Who are you? Who are you not? You got to know that for yourself. Because guess what? You're sitting there in the hot seat before and after 5 other, 10 other, 15 other candidates. Why you? What makes you special? What are the superpowers you bring to the table? Again, lane, superpowers, community. But be clear about that. You're not just a generic resume. You are special. You are unique. You have very special things to contribute. Be clear. Be consistent across all of your communication vehicles, your resume, your LinkedIn, other kinds of social media, your networking, your interviewing. Anytime you want to get yourself out there, be consistent. Have that elevator pitch. Know exactly what you want to say. What is your messaging? And then constancy, okay? Always be visible. Be out there. It's not enough these days, at least, to just have a LinkedIn profile, set it and forget it. Survey says not so much, okay? Because when you do that, right? Yeah, somebody might stumble across it, but if you're become a thought leader, if you get out there, if you engage in social media, if you engage in groups like this, you are constantly being visible to your target audience. Because let me tell you something, you might think that you are targeting employers, but here's the reality. You're actually targeting your colleagues. What do I mean by that? It's the thing that I just mentioned earlier. When Teresa's looking for a Scrum Master, okay, and she calls Susie, and Susie knows Catherine, Catherine and Susie are colleagues. They're colleagues. It's not that Teresa's calling the vice president, let's say, right? She's targeting your twin, your professional twin. So actually, the more you can surround yourself with colleagues who do what you do or versions of what you do, the more likely it is that the Teresas, the recruiters, when they go out to look for you, they're going to be able to find you better. Why? Because it's colleague to colleague. If she were to only network with people who were 1 or 2 levels above you, those 1 or 2 level people are less likely to know you, because people tend to hang out with the same level and the same community, the same lane, right? So always be making sure that you're targeting colleagues, not just hiring managers, okay? And again, make sure everything is consistent across your resume, LinkedIn, and social media. So this is the exercise I wanted to share with you briefly. Normally, I would actually spend time on this. We do a full breakout session. We just don't have time for that. But I wanted to mention this to you because please take a screenshot of this, of everything that I'm sending, and I'll certainly send the PowerPoint to John and Marie. But I say this because this is a really, really great exercise. And it's one that I use as a career coach and as a career brander that I take people through. And so here are these 4 quadrants. In the upper right is what I was alluding to earlier, this high engagement, right? So areas where you are highly skilled and highly motivated. These are the skills you're great at and you love and you give discretionary effort. In the bottom right is stopgap work. By contrast, things you're great at that you don't particularly enjoy doing. okay? You'll do it if you have to. Basically, this is work you tolerate. Okay, so in the upper right, things you love, big old smiley face. Bottom right, things you tolerate, and meh face. Okay, you'll do it if you have to. Upper left is professional development, which breaks down into two sections, want to and need to. So this is all areas of growth. But the want to is the get to, is the woohoo, I'd love to learn more about Agile. Okay, great. But the need to is things that you're, again, you tolerate. It's like, well, fine, I know, I've been told I need to be better at managing budgets. Okay. But you're only saying that you need to do it because at your level of career, it's a requirement. Okay. Because of whatever the normal skill set is for your level, it's something that you need to learn, but it's not necessarily something you want to. And then bottom left is disengagement. Things you're not good at, you have no desire to be. These are the things that drain you. So icky face. Okay. So what I want you to do is, again, we don't have time right now. I would do a breakout if we had the time, but I'd like you to take this offline. Okay. And fill this out. And what I'd like you to do is fill it out with your hard skills, not your soft skills. What do I mean by that? Your hard skills are your functional skills. Your soft skills are your behavioral skills. If you put down your hard skills here, then you're going to have context. If you only put down soft skills, you wouldn't have context. You wouldn't say things like, oh, I'm great with people and analytical and organized. Well, that's great, but that doesn't give you any context. Use hard skills, scheduling and risk management and cost management and change management, whatever it is, okay? Financial management, those kinds of skills will help you to discern what kind of role is right for you, what kind of brand, how you want to brand yourself into the market. Okay. And by the way, it's very likely you're going to fill out the right side of the page more than the left side because people work to their strengths typically. So make sure that the columns on the right, the boxes on the right are more filled out, but particularly the high engagement. And then what you want to do is you want to have somebody objective in your life. It could be somebody like me, or it could be somebody like your colleague, but not a spouse and not your best friend, nobody that has a dog in the hunt. Okay. You want somebody who's very, very objective in your life who can talk you through this and ask you questions. Why did you put down skill A, B, or C? Why do you love doing PD and Q? And then how can you then translate that into your resume and then write a compelling LinkedIn about section that speaks to what you love to do? Okay, so that's fashiontivity. All right, so I'm going to give you a sample branded resume, and I pulled one. I don't have, and just so you know, full disclosure, because I'm not just a career coach, I'm a resume writer. I'm also a LinkedIn profile writer. So I pulled one from I redacted it. I pulled one from a technical resume I wrote. So it's the closest I could get to PM, but it was a technical one. All right, and what you'll see here, okay, is what I did was I have this philosophy that you should always be given, and by the way, ask 5 resume writers, you'll get 7 opinions. All right, so this is my opinion. But I always believe that you should have a headline, the top of your resume. And remember, all of this needs to be customized. So you start with what I call a master document, and then you customize it for the role. So this is a master document for this individual, level 3 tech support help desk, kind of person. I put a little bit of the soft skills at the top, but that's it. Mostly what us recruiters, most recruiters, we gloss by all that soft skills in the resume. We don't gloss over soft skills in the interview. We really listen for that. But on the resume where we're just doing check the box, have you, can you, we typically don't. But if you want to give a nod to some of your soft skills, you can do that up here. Now, in this case, I use a text box. Now, this particular one's a very big text box because in his case, I wanted to make sure that kind of all his tech skills were here. For some of you, this kind of thing might work, having a real substantive text box. For most people, it's going to be a lot shorter. In fact, it's probably going to be a third of this, where you're just going to want to have skill, and you can just do like a pipeline in between, but something that speaks right up top to the professional functional skills that meet your brand. And again, customize it for the job. So you might have said, I don't know, I have to think. I'm going to do a silly one that has nothing to do with what you guys do. So what's the difference between event planning and meeting planning? Not so much. I mean, event planners might take issue with me saying that, but more or less, it's more of a synonym. So if you said event planning and they said meeting planning, you say meeting planning. So you look for the synonyms, okay, of what you do. Use the keywords that's right for them, even though you started with a master document. And then this is really the substantive part I wanted to share with you. First of all, when you list your jobs, right, under your experience section, do not just list job duties. We want accomplishments, okay? And you can have them a little longer like this as long as you have that little skill label. You see where it says cybersecurity remediation, client win back? Those are skill labels, and it makes it so easy for the recruiter to scan down the page, skill, 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 skill. So you have the same skills in the top section in the text box, and then you have them listed down the side. Make sure you have substantive accomplishment stories. It could be a couple lines, could be 3 lines. Here they're more like 4 lines. It's okay. But if you didn't have the skill label, watch this, optically, it wouldn't look as good because it would just look like one block of text. You gotta have the skill labels in order to break up the text and also to call the recruiter's attention to the very skills that they are trying to screen you out. Remember, notice what I just said, they're trying to screen you out, not in. They can only hire one person. They have to screen people out. We do. We just have to do that. And most recruiters take, well, the ladder says most recruiters take 6 seconds to look at a resume. I say 2.5. Okay. The point is, it's very fast. And they're looking down and they are just saying skill, skill, skill. Has this person done what we need them to do super fast? Okay. So that's something about the resume. I really want to spend the majority of our time here on LinkedIn, okay? Because LinkedIn to me is really where it's at in terms of showing up before your resume. So why expand your brand on LinkedIn? Okay, there's just so many reasons, but a few kind of for your purposes is number one, to enhance your career mobility. No matter whether you're in an active job search or not, the more visible you are on LinkedIn, the more you're likely to be tapped, the more likely people are going to be able to find you, call you out and say, hey, I'm interested in you before you even have to go look for a job. In fact, I've been coaching for 10 years now, and I can't tell you how many people call me and say, Shira, this is the first time I've actually had to look for a job. I've been recruited for every single job. It happened. Probably a lot of you have had it happen to you. Why? Because somehow your brand went before you. Your reputation went before you, and expanding your brand on LinkedIn can help with that. You can showcase your expertise, okay, to your profession, to your industry. Again, this has to do with your branding, right? If you've got thought leadership, LinkedIn is a fantastic place to let people know that in the posts, in the groups, articles, blogs, that kind of thing. And then also sparking ideation within your community. Hello, right? Who doesn't want innovation? All right. And especially in the kind of roles that you guys are in. I mean, I know you're not, tech innovators, but still your world keeps evolving. Okay. And I'm hopefully I'm not sounding too kindergarten here, just for me, but I remember back in a day it used to be waterfall, right? And now it's agile. I mean, if I've said that correctly, but the point is that things keep moving, okay? Things keep changing within a profession. So spark ideation. If you've got something to say to your community, don't just be a thought leader, be a thought provoker, be an idea generator, a generative, right? Kind of a thought leader, and spark, right? Make sure that people get that you've got something interesting to say. Okay. So how do you do this? You create a credible, searchable profile, right? And there are a lot of different ways to do that. Number one is make sure that your keywords that are related to your industry and profession are all throughout your profile. Your headline and your about section and your recommendations and your experience and the thought leadership and. You've got to know the keywords that people are looking for. And part of how you know that is when you're looking at job announcements, look at the keywords that they're listing, okay? Write a searchable headline. So your headline is what goes right underneath your name, okay? Now, for a lot of you who are gainfully employed, it's just going to be your regular title. Now, if you change your title, there's a subtlety here. Your boss might know that you're looking for a job. This is what happens, okay? When people change their titles off of their regular titles and change it to something interesting, it's sort of a clue, right? Like, oh, she's looking. So you've got to make a decision as to whether or not you were in a position to change that headline to something cute or something memorable, something, right, searchable. But if you are in an active job search and you are not doing it confidentially, absolutely. Make sure that you put the keywords in that make sense for you to be found, okay? Crafting a compelling about section. And by the way, I'm going to give you a bunch of examples after this slide. So this is a high level right now. An about section. The thing with the about section, there are a lot of philosophies about this. First of all, I would say, I don't think I'm exaggerating, I'd say about 90% at least of LinkedIn profiles are what I call a boring vanilla bio at best. It's 3 lines, 4 lines, 10 plus years of experience doing skill X with industry Y and skill Z. Like, it doesn't say anything to us about your brand, okay? Some people who actually write LinkedIn profiles like me have a different philosophy than I do, and theirs is much more keyword heavy. And I do believe in embedding keywords, but I also believe in crafting a narrative, okay? A narrative that actually speaks to the urgent problems that you are in a unique position to solve in the world. And again, I'm going to give you an example about that. Your experience section, you need to make sure that it's fleshed out. It's not just the couple 3 lines of your job duties, but put in accomplishments, put in links to projects. Make it easy for the recruiter to say yes. Because when that recruiter is looking at your profile, right, what they want to see is this somebody that I can screen in? Okay, they don't want to have, I mean, they'll ask for your resume at some point, but guess what? Your LinkedIn profile is your resume. In fact, it's actually, to me, it's a better version of your resume because it has the about section. It has all these other things that the recruiter can look at. Skills, endorsements, and recommendations. Now, skills and endorsements, back in the day when those 2 were created, we advanced LinkedIn users, we poo-pooed it. We're like, really? Why? Because what LinkedIn to this day still does is they'll say to your colleague, they'll say, John, so what does Shira know about temporary staffing? Now, by the way, I don't do temporary staffing, okay? But LinkedIn doesn't know that. They just popped out a skill to John because it's related to what I call the staffing and recruiting industry that I'm in. And John doesn't know any better. He clicks, boom, okay, Shira knows something about it. Well, guess what? What ended up happening was all these skills and endorsements were coming out, or the endorsements based on skills were coming out that had nothing to do with what I do or what any of you do. However, you can be intentional about it. If you want to improve your chances of getting noticed by recruiters, LinkedIn's algorithm is such that if you have the right skills in there, when a Teresa's looking for you, she wants to see Agile, Scrum, this, that, and the other, okay? If you have endorsements for those skills, it's more likely you're going to come up in the first few pages, okay? So in that regard, it is important to make sure that the skills that you have in there intentionally and get endorsements for them are the ones that a recruiter is going to be looking for. And recommendations, can't emphasize that enough. First of all, you can't have too many, really, you can't have too many. But the recommendations should be from supervisors, from colleagues, not friends, not family members, people who work with you and for you, around you, who know your work. Recommendations are very, very important, but it's not even just the fact that it's a recommendation. It needs to be a recommendation that really speaks to your brand. Okay, I've seen it happen where either the resume is very either the recommendation is very flimsy. Oh, John's a great guy. Well, I know John's a great guy, but that doesn't tell me anything about his superpowers. Either it's flimsy or it's off-brand. One time I was looking at somebody's recommendation, and the recommendation says, you know, Susie is very detailed and organized. Da 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 da. Well, great, she probably is. I was looking for a strategic thinker. Now, I'm not saying that Susie was a strategic thinker, but had she been a strategic thinker, she should have asked her recommenders to speak to her strategic thinking skills. And that is something you need to do. When you ask for a recommendation, don't just say, would you recommend me? You actually ask the person, would you please speak to my brand? And you tell them what that is. Now, first of all, it could be, hopefully it's in your LinkedIn, your headline and your about section. But even beyond that, say, you know, Jack, would you speak to my, whatever the skills are, you know, some aspects of my PM skills that really speak to how you want to show up. Okay, so be intentional about that. So I'm going to give you some examples now. I'm going to run through this pretty fast. So here is an individual who is in the IT sector. And I wanted to show you this picture, the behind, not his picture, but the picture behind the picture, right? You notice a lot of people are doing this right now. They're putting a big picture behind. Be thoughtful about that, okay? So what you don't want to do is have something that is either off-brand or irrelevant. So here in the DC area, what you will notice a lot of people do, they'll put a picture of the Capitol, or they'll put a picture of the cherry blossoms. I mean, they're very lovely, right? But look, unless you're a horticulturist or unless you're a lobbyist, you should not be putting the cherry blossoms or the Capitol behind you. You want to find a picture that reflects your professional brand, but do it. It's really, really helpful to do that, okay? Next, all right, writing a compelling profile about section. Now, this is actually the one that I wrote for art. And this is an example of what I was talking about. So I am a copywriter. Like I said, I write these things. This is my own philosophy. I'm not saying you have to do it this way, but you may want to consider going in this direction, because what this basically what this profile says to the world is who he is, his philosophy, the problems that he solves, and then of course there's some technical skills at the bottom. Okay, I'm just going to read this very, very fast because I just want you to get I want you to hear it, right? I kind of get the feeling of it. I'm an IT support professional who believes in the power of service. Technology is the lifeblood of business, hidden from view, but vital to survival. The lightning pace of change has fueled the need for reliable, rapid back-end support. End users need a savvy and relational IT sleuth to navigate the maze of hardware, software, cloud, and cybersecurity issues, and they need to get back to work fast. My cyber sleuthing skills. So get this is a cyber sleuth, right? Cyber kind of a brand that he wanted to push forward. With increased phishing and ransomware attacks, it's easy for end users either to infect their computers innocently or be overly paranoid about the threat. Thankfully, I know how to detect real incidents versus convincing frauds. When that threat is real, identifying and exterminating malware are my superpowers. Often when engineers are stumped, they call me because of my uncanny research skills and ability to pinpoint the keywords that crack the code. Because I know where malware resides, I can hunt it down like a skilled marksman. My relationship building skills. De-escalating urgent support calls is all about building trust. Here's how I do it. Providing a confident, reassuring tone on the other end of the line, explaining the issues using metaphors and analogies, not geek speak, using HEAT method, hear, empathize, apology, take ownership, being the pathway to the solution, even if the problem can't be manually solved, and then following up post-resolution, which builds relational equity for future calls. And then my technical skills, X, Y, and Z, okay? So I wanted to show you this is a different way of writing your profile. You have about, I think it's now 2,200 characters, not words. So it's like 300-ish kind of words. Use it, use the real estate, right? Because I'll tell you, if a Teresa is looking for you and she likes what she sees in the experience section in the headline, she's then likely to go to the about section and say, who is this person? What do they say about themselves? Because you know what this really is? This becomes the answer to that lovely interview question that we all know, which is, tell me about yourself, okay? Nobody knows how to answer that. This is how to answer it. If you write this well, you will be answering the question before you answer the question. You'll be answering the question before Teresa needs to ask you that kind of question, okay? So be really intentional. Write it yourself, work with someone like me, doesn't really matter. I don't know your writing skills, but whatever it is, be very, very thoughtful in how you write this, okay? Another one, this is now I'm getting into what people I've not worked with. These are just random people, and I pulled them because you're all PMs, and so I went to the PM world, right? And I found somebody here, just as an example, right, who, you know, he wrote an about section. No, it's not the most compelling thing in the world, but it's not the typical vanilla bio either. And he really, he really went into his about section and listed it. I mean, there's a lot of skills here. And I thought it was interesting. Now I have no idea how to vet this, Teresa would, but but I can just say it seemed to me pretty robust, more so than others that I've seen. Okay. Oops, I am having some issues here. All right. Second thing, with again going back to the experience section, right? This is a different person. Pulled up a description. There's some meat here. Okay, this person listed out a bunch of projects that they worked on. So again, make sure that it's really, really fleshed out with accomplishments and/or projects. Here's a different person. This person obviously didn't do a great job fleshing out their experience, but they uploaded a sample of their work product. Okay, that's also very important to do. Licenses and certifications. Probably a lot of you have this already, but it's not just your PMP. It's any other online courses that you've done, any MOOCs, whatever. If it's a badge, put it on there. Don't hold back. Now, skills and endorsements. So I put an X and a check. Okay. So I pulled from somebody who, and these are all PMs. So I pulled from a PM who did what I call, sort of generic kinds of things. Team leadership, when they put cold calling and sales, which based on their profile didn't really seem to fit. But on the right side, okay, you'll see skills that obviously are all in your wheelhouse. Be very intentional, okay, in which skills you put out there. Like I said earlier, you've got to make sure that your brand is really, really solid and you're being found by the skills that you want to be found by, recommendations, same thing. I talked about that earlier, right? It's important. These are robust. These are robust. And I thought that, these say, Arena, consistently over delivered on projects assigned to her, took initiative, in-depth knowledge, make sure that it's robust. That's all. I just gotta ask, because people don't know what it unless you ask. All right, so now I want to shift to building your network, okay? Showcasing your thought leadership. There are a number of ways to do that. You can connect with colleagues, get into groups, write articles. Well, we call them blogs, LinkedIn calls them articles, share and send posts, get yourself out there, right? So I did a couple of searches for you, and I put in here PMP, okay, in the search bar in the upper, because that search bar in the upper left-hand corner, that's the key to the whole, everything, okay? Everything you want to do, all those keywords can go in there. So I put in PMP, and then I hit enter, and then I hit the people button, okay, on the left-hand side. And then what you'll see is these three buttons, and locations is one. So I clicked on locations, I typed in San Francisco, right, because that's where y'all are. And here we go, okay? And then this is what came up. So these are PMs in the San Francisco. These are I presume these are your colleagues. They might even be on this call, who knows, okay? But these are the kinds of people that you want to connect with. Remember earlier, the Susie and the Catherine. Connect with people who do what you do, so that if it's not right for Sean, it's right for you. Participate in a group, same thing. Put in PMP in the search bar. I hit the groups button, right? And here we go, in San Francisco, okay? And I don't know if any of you know about these groups, but you may want to join, okay? But look for groups, okay, that are in your sector. Write, share, send posts and articles. Same thing. I put PMP, hit posts, and then I looked for ones. Now you have to think about, posts are interesting right now because a lot of people are trying to sell themselves, okay, not really be thought leaders. You got to be careful about this. But I found a person, okay, and it looked, she looked interesting to me. So she wrote something that, I don't know if this is real thought leadership, but it looked more thought leadership-y than other posts that I had. And this is somebody that if you liked what she, what she said, then you go to the bottom, and I try to pull it out here. It's the like, comment, or share. Okay, so it's like, comment, share, or send. So liking, we know, commenting, sharing and sending, right? So sharing is with, if you want to repost it to your whole thread, right? You want all of your network to see it, that's fine. Then you put a little note there. Sending is when you want to send it to a person or people, multiple people, okay? So that's how you would do that, but make sure that you do that. Do it right on a regular basis, because what's going to happen here is if you do this enough, you're going to get the credibility by association. So if somebody else is writing a post, you didn't write it, but because you're, so to speak, endorsing it, posting it, resharing it, right? Or as you do that, people are going to start ascribing that type of thought leadership to you too. Okay, it's just kind of a psychological thing. All right, leveraging LinkedIn for your job search. As you can imagine here, right? Oops. So looking for people, your community, your lane, researching employers, getting referred to a job through an internal champion, preparing for interviews. We're going to talk about this right now. So networking with people in your lane. Okay, I mentioned it earlier. These are the folks. So you can network with them for all kinds of reasons, just generically, because, hey, Sean does what you do, and you just want to have a Zoom coffee and talk shop and, kind of get to know him. Great. So now he knows you a little bit and he can refer you. But Sean can also be somebody, and I'm skipping ahead here because I have another slide on this. Sean could also be somebody who, if Sean knows somebody in the job that you're applying for, so like you're connected to Sean and Sean's connected to Daniel, okay, and Daniel's company has the opening, you can leverage Sean as a champion of your candidacy, either because Sean knows Daniel, or maybe Sean and Daniel work in the same company, right? And Sean can be the internal champion. Either which way, what's really important here is the showing up before your resume. If you apply to a job, there's nothing wrong with applying to a job, and Indeed, Dice, whatever your board is. But because that recruiter has so many applications, when somebody that they trust, so they're the recruiter, right? So the hiring manager hears about you, a colleague hears about you, anybody internally who hears about you, who can get your resume noticed, who can get your resume basically plucked out of the pile, that increases your chances of getting the interview by 50%. It just does. You want to get noticed. That's the whole point. So find somebody who can help champion your candidacy internally, networking with people in your community. Okay. So again, looking at, oh, by the way, you here, in order to find the people in your community, which LinkedIn calls industry, you would tap on the all filters button. Okay. And then scroll down, and there's a section that's called industry. Now in this case, IT was pulled up there, so I clicked on it. But you can click on add an industry, and you can start typing in the name of the industry. I will say, okay, and this is not I'm not going to LinkedIn Live right now. This is a screenshot, so I can't do this in the moment. But not every industry is listed in LinkedIn. Okay, so where you find this, where you find LinkedIn's industries, is you go to your own profile, and go to the editable page of your profile. And right at the top, where it has your name and all of that stuff, you click on that little pencil. And if you scroll down, one of the sections says industry, and you click on that drop down, and you'll see there's like 30 different industries. So find the one that is closest to you to see if you want to network with people who are in your community, not just in your lane. Okay. So again, here's networking people in your community, same concept. And you'll see I just circled a couple of them. These are IT, right, people in the project management world. I then pulled one, the Sean guy, and then this is a way you can research employers, right? So you pull up Sean's background, and you see in his experience section, I just pushed it over the side, and he works for a company called 2Local. Okay, well now I clicked on 2Local, and here is their webpage, not their webpage, their LinkedIn their LinkedIn business page is right here. So you click on the visit website. Go there. You can see where it says CL9 employees on LinkedIn. By the way, this is a little bit of a technical glitch on LinkedIn's part. That used to be hyperlinked. It isn't anymore, but it's still linkable. It still is hyperlinked. It just doesn't look it. So you could click on the CL9 employees, and you can see all the people there. Okay. So you can get referred, right, for a specific job, or you can tap the hidden job market. So, again, so what I did was I looked at Sean's 12 mutual connections to see where we were, who our first levels, because at the end of the day, Sean doesn't know me. Sean's a second level. Okay. But if I want to get to Sean, I could tap on his 12 mutual connections and see, is there anybody in this list that could help get me there? And what would I do? So let's say it's Kenny. And so with Kenny, I could do one of two things. I could send him a message on LinkedIn, but Kenny may not be checking his messages. Or better yet, I would email Kenny. If I email Kenny, and how do I find Kenny's email? Well, because we're first level, I'd open up his profile, and then there's a contact info button. Click that, and you'll see his contact, his email address usually. And then I would write him and say, hey, Kenny, I noticed on LinkedIn that you're connected to Sean, who works at company X. And then fill in the blank. Either you want to get introduced to him because you just want to network. You notice that there was an opening there, and you just want to learn more about the opportunity, or there's an opening there you've already applied, and you can say, I noticed you're connected to Sean. I recently applied for, Scrum Master position at 2Local. And I was hoping you could send my resume and cover letter, which you're going to attach, to Sean, to send it to the recruiter for extra consideration. That's all you're trying to do, is get the extra consideration so that you're not it's kind of in the jumbled mess. Okay. Again, finding an internal champion, you'd click on the CL9 employees, right? And then here we go. Here's all the 2Local people. Like I've been saying, you can get introduced to somebody who can champion your candidacy, to the hiring manager, HR, or again, give you cultural insights to prepare for your interview. And then finally, being a go-giver. Okay. You can convene colleagues. You can give advice. Again, you can share, respond, share posts, make referrals. You want to be a go-giver, not a go-taker. Okay, it's in your job search. This is not just about you. This is about other people. It's about solving other people's business challenges, whether it's your colleagues who you're networking with, or certainly the employers. Your job is to get out there and not just say, give me, but let me give you something that's valuable to you. Okay, you can convene a group on Zoom just like this. Have a little thought leadership group like this, right? Give advice to people, make sure that you are out there and that you are being helpful to the community, not only just asking for a job. Okay. I know that I've talked for 45 minutes straight, and normally I would have taken time to get into breakouts. I do realize that we're actually at time. And I do before I get back to the main room, I do want to give you my contact information if you want to take a screenshot of this. Happy to stay in touch. Feel free to send me a LinkedIn invitation. And if you do, just put a little note let me know who you are so that I can connect with you. Okay. All right. So again, whirlwind. Hopefully that was helpful. I know that we're at time. Marie or John, I don't know if you are open for some questions here. However you want to do this.
I mean, I think Marie has had to disappear, but I think, you know, if people do want to hang out for a little bit and ask some questions, I think we have time for that.
Yeah, I have to drop off, but John, I will hand the host baton on to you so you guys can continue the meeting. Thanks, Shira, so much for a great talk.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Shira.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Shira.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Oh.
That was so good, I have to say. I mean, I have listened to so many presentations in the last 9 years, probably 4 or 5 every month. Seriously, I do that many with PMI. Really effective, good presentation. Really, I loved reading through some of those profiles you brought up on LinkedIn. Let me just bring up 2 things as a recruiter so that I can supplement this. What I think is really helpful is, number one, you've got your picture on LinkedIn. It's really hard for me to get to know you without a picture. Okay, so that to me really is helpful. And number 2, that you're looking for work around your picture. You've labeled yourself that way, because then I know I can reach out because you are looking. Otherwise, I don't know a lot of times if these people are looking for work. So those are 2 things that really help me. Again, your picture, and you identify I am looking for job opportunities.
It's called open to hire. Or
Open to hire.
Open to hire. Open to work. Open to work.
Open to work. Yeah, just like mine says, I'm hiring, right? So I'm letting you know I'm hiring, and I want to know you're looking for work. Thanks.
And the way that you do that is when you go to your editable profile, right under, like right away, it says, there's a little button and it says, do you want to let recruiters know? I mean, it's not going to let your whole job, it's supposed to only let recruiters know, and now other people might see it. But if you're in an active job search, it is absolutely worth it. Click on the button, open to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, we have a question from Larry.
Yeah, Shira, Larry, great presentation, but I had a question, something you didn't cover. What are your opinion on these so-called highly visual new resume formats? They often have graphs and so forth. I think, I don't know, do you have an opinion on those versions of resumes?
So I would say, look, it's an evolving world right now. Okay. I would suggest that if you are in, if you're in a profession that values the extra visual element, marketing, right? Graphic people, those kinds of things, proposal managers, maybe, yeah, go for it. Right. No. Other people, I would hesitate, right? Sort of normal rank and file, those of us who don't do that kind of work. Only because it's so new that I think a lot of employers might not know what to do with it. So right. I would emphasize more traditional, now compelling and graphically well laid out, but not necessarily what you're talking about.
Here's a note, there's a hybrid version where you could do sort of, part the traditional narrative and yet pull in this visual. Maybe there is, but I haven't gone that far to
Yeah, some people do addendums. They'll do a regular resume, then they'll do something else on the side. Some people actually have a website that they draw people to. Where they'll have showcasing their portfolio, whatever. So you can get a little creative. I just wouldn't necessarily go out on a limb unless you're in that kind of architects, you know what I mean? Anything, people in the design world, I think could stand to go for something. In fact, I would say this, you kind of need to. If you are anything in design, which I don't think anybody here is, but if you are, then you do actually have to stand out, but otherwise I wouldn't recommend it. Other questions?
Hey, just one little fun thing, because I'm not sure you know this, Shira. You can leave a voicemail for people on LinkedIn. You can call them and leave a voicemail if you're a first. Yes, if you're a first connection. So in the mobile app, when you click on one of your first degree contacts, the button will show up at the bottom, the microphone button, just like you use the microphone button when you're using your phone, right? To leave text messages, whatever. It's down there at the bottom of when you click on your contact within the mobile app, you just press it and hold it and you'll leave the contact a voicemail.
That's amazing.
Awesome. I mean, it rarely, and so they get notified right after that you have a voicemail message. So that's a really, now you have to have a
Thank you.
first degree connection. So I realize that can be a challenge, right? If, you know, because maybe it's a lot of these non-first degrees that we're trying to get attention with, but I just want you to know you can do that.
See,
Yeah.
every time I do a LinkedIn training, I learn something new because LinkedIn is changing all the time. So yeah, thanks, Teresa. That's a great tip. Anybody else? All right. Well, if you have
All right.
other questions, feel free to shoot me a note. And again, link in with me. And yeah, great being with all of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Shira.
you,
It was-
Shira.
It was a pleasure. And yeah, I will also, I have a recording of this. I'll try to post it as soon as I can, if I can find a place to store it. So thank you, everybody. And